Welcome to the Thought Brothers. It is May, coming up on Mother's Day, y'all. Just so y'all remember, don't forget, coming up on Sunday. So, look, tonight we're going to talk about decisions and choices because every choice and decision has consequences. So, we're going to examine our personal choices and the choices of our community. We're going to kick it off. We talked briefly about this last week. There was some rumors and talk in media about Dave Chappelle rebooting the Chappelle Show. One of his favorite skits on the show was when keeping it real goes wrong. And my question to the panel here is keeping it real an excuse for bad behavior? Mr. Spivey, what say you?
Personally, I don't think keeping it real is an excuse for bad behavior. I think a lot of times keeping it real is an excuse for stupidity. Yeah. I mean, if you look at that David Chappelle skit, it's three different episodes in that skit. And I think one of them, he was leaving the club with his girl, and he was thinking he was going to, have a good night. And the guy said something to her, and he turned around when he should have just kept walking, and he ended up getting beat down. And the girl he was with, she beat him too. So I think a lot of times people saying, I'm just keeping it real. I just think it's a lot of times it's an excuse for doing something stupid.
Okay.
There's a lot of sayings these days, which I really don't understand, and I kind of dismiss because people will say, you know, with all due respect. When you say with all due respect, that means you're getting ready to disrespect me, because otherwise you wouldn't need to say with all due respect. So that's just my feeling on keeping it real. And there was, like I said, there was two other skits in that keeping it real episode.
Okay. Carlos.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Spivey. I think keeping it real is an excuse for when you just do boneheaded things and you don't know how to justify it. Yeah, if you think about the Dave Chappelle skit where the person called, I think the woman called a house and the woman answered, and I don't like people playing on my phone. And
Yeah.
come on, man. I mean, it's just stupid behavior. And you just say you dress it up as saying I was keeping it real, and then she ended up getting some time in jail for defacing a public a government vehicle, and then the people in jail kept it realer. So it's funny, but it's not funny if it really happens in real life, because keeping it real is a joke to me. It's not keeping it right. That's my take.
All right. CJ.
I feel like the moral of the story is in the skits. When keeping it real goes wrong, it usually goes wrong. So like, I mean, usually even if people even if it's understandable, it doesn't mean you're not going to jail or something for keeping it real. You're not gonna ruin your own life. I think a great example is this streamer guy. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Have you seen Chud the Builder? He's a streamer in Tennessee, and he goes around to black people and just calls them the hard ER and says, "Do you believe in free speech?" And he tries to provoke a response and to get people angry to beat him up. And it's like, yeah, I mean, eventually somebody could keep it real and, shoot this guy, but then, you got to deal with the legal ramifications and, things like that. And I don't think anybody would be mourning Chud the Builder, but at the same time, like, nobody wants to see somebody go to jail for something like that. So again, you gotta, and I think it's amazing that, he's gone around and done that to try to provoke a response from the black community like that and has not so far. And he's kind of proven the point that we aren't, ignorant, low impulse people. You can go around throwing the hard ER, people will be angry, but nobody's looking to throw their life away for it. So again, there's keeping it real and then there's common sense.
Okay. All right. So that slides us or transitions us into something a little more serious. Mr. Spivey, what's the biggest problem in your view hurting our community right now?
Gary, there's several things that I feel that are hurting the community. I think one of the biggest problems right now that's hurting, and I'm going to say the black community because I'm an African American, is poor health care. Um, a lot of people in the black community suffer from high blood pressure, diabetes, and I know you'll get people who will say, well, it's their fault because of the way that they eat and that type of thing. But people are having a hard time with healthcare. Healthcare is expensive, hospitalization is expensive, and the drug companies are making a mint off of poor people. I mean, I had a friend, to give you a prime example, I had a friend of mine who is passed on now, and she had diabetes. And it cost her $500 a month for insulin for diabetes. She could take a flight because she had dual citizenship, and she could go to Canada and she could get 3 months of insulin for $500. That is totally ridiculous. And what happens is when people can't get proper health care, then they let their health go. And before you know it, it's something serious. I mean, and on top of that, we both know that we have a president now who has cut what $800 billion from Medicaid, which is an insurance that a lot of people were on under the AOC and with Obamacare. So being able to afford health care, I think, is one of the major things that's facing us today.
Okay. Thank you. Carlos.
Come on, you know I'm gonna say lack of economic discipline. Ah, man, everything stems. If you don't manage your money right, everything's gonna get bad. My barber. It's funny we have a lot of talk about barbers and their perspective, but my barber was telling me. He said he listens to a lot of people. He said, man, he understands where everybody's coming from, but he said a lot of people have caviar taste and tuna fish money.
Yeah.
So just because you can buy a car doesn't mean it's the right car for you. You can afford maybe an economy car, but you go out and buy the luxury biggest SUV you can find. You can't afford to put the gas in it. You can't afford the payment. And if you can't afford the payment, is it right to pay 25 or 30% on a loan for a car because you got bad credit? This happens. This literally happens. And then when you do that, that collapses everything else around you, right? You start running. You just because you got a car loan, sometimes creditors think, okay, the credit was good enough to get the car, regardless of what percentage you got it at. But then you start getting credit card offers. Then you start applying. If you apply fast enough, unfortunately, before you obtain too much debt, then you might get a couple at one time. And then people end up using those cards, and they just keep going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And I think in a time like now, with the current administration in DC, you really have to decide your needs besides your wants. Like, everybody wants a pair of Air Jordans, and I love them. I got several pair myself. But now I don't know how many pair of Air Jordans I can buy because I got to pay for gas to put in my car. I mean, you got to think about your needs versus your wants. And I think when people don't do that, that leads to, again, not only financial problems, but it leads to healthcare problems. You see people talking about, well, I'm going to take the lesser healthcare plan, the least expensive one. And then they actually get sick. And then they go from being maybe the 20% of 10,000 in debt to maybe, which is $2,000 on $10,000, right? To needing some major operation or surgery. And then they end up tens of or 20 or $30,000 in debt or even more. So I think, again, people really need to take a closer look at their needs versus wants, because I think that's what's hurting the community the most. If you can't take care of yourself, it's going to be very hard to take care of someone else.
Okay. CJ.
I really think it's just a product of late stage capitalism that, kind of engulfs both of your points. We talked about healthcare, lack of healthcare that's in the for profit motive that, only really exists here in the United States, in healthcare, where, they profit on getting people sick, which is why we had a Luigi Mangione, situation happen, because, people understand that these healthcare companies are letting their loved ones die to rack up profits. It's not like a secret. People kind of understand what the system is and how it works, and this kind of a legal, gray area for that. And then on top of that, I feel like you're right, to a degree, Carlos, about economic discipline, with people prioritizing the wrong things in this capitalistic mindset of I have to, have a nicer car and have the nicer house, even though that might not be, what at the top of the list of needs. But also, it's just a whole lot of people just not making enough money to survive. And I think that's not a product of, not having enough discipline. It's not someone's fault if they don't have enough money to pay their rent, or they don't have enough money for that expensive healthcare plan because gas is too high, because Donald Trump wants to go to war with Iran for no reason, and things that are out of their control. So again, I think it's a vast amount of people in this country that don't make enough to pay their rent, and they don't make enough to survive comfortably. And that's a larger issue than, I think, just not having the discipline. I think that's part of it. I think that doesn't help some people when they're living on the margins, and there's reckless spending. But I think more so it's a systematic issue of where the economy's going, and it's not going in the right direction. We're losing jobs. There's AI taking jobs. There's all types of things happening. Just talking about healthcare, there could very much be another pandemic. We have RFK Jr. in charge of making sure there's never, not another healthcare pandemic. I don't know if you saw, there's this cruise virus and things going around. So we don't know how crazy the world's going to get. And that's not a fault of, just the American people, a person trying to work hard who is getting screwed over by their boss because their boss has 8 yachts and doesn't want to pay them more. You saw like Spirit Airlines closed because the cost of fuel is too high. So there's no budget option for people for the airlines. And now I think it was Delta, who their CEO just got a raise, but now they said they no longer are going to even give water bottles or something for short flights or even refreshments, and they're cutting that out. So this is just where we're at in capitalism, and I don't think it's the fault of the American people for being squeezed and not getting a living wage.
Okay.
Gary, just to piggyback off of what CJ just said, just before I came on, I was looking at TV and Ari Milburn, I know you probably know who that is.
Yeah.
He talked about near the end of his show about people today, just like CJ said, it's not a lack of discipline, but what has happened with the gas prices, they were showing California at 686, and he was doing a thing on food prices. What is happening now, people are running their credit card debt through the roof to buy gas and to buy food.
Yeah.
And so it's really not their fault. It's the economy, and and as CJ just said, the stupid war that we were put in that could have been prevented because there was already something in place that was controlling that country, and they were abiding by it. And, somebody didn't like it because of who put it in place.
Who put it in place? Yeah.
Hey, can I throw something in there real quick?
Go ahead.
I know Trump has a plan where he's going to put, for families who make what 35,000 or less, who want to get open an IRA, the government's going to match the first $1,000 of the IRA. So I was speaking with a couple guys who are in the financial world, and I said, you realize if someone makes 35 in 2026, if someone makes 35,000 or less, they're just trying to pay their bills. They're working from paycheck to paycheck. They don't have $1,000 to give to the government to hold, even if the government matches $1,000, right? They can't wait for the returns 10 or 20 years. They need that 1,000 right now. So it sounds good, but the reality is people who come from the neighborhoods that I grew up in who are making 35,000 or less, or you could probably making 50,000 or less now, like say with gas and food prices the way they are, and you just don't have that extra 1,000 to put out there, even if someone's going to match it. I mean, we're trying to survive today because the rate things are going with healthcare, food, and fuel. Is there a tomorrow for some people?
Carlos, it's just another deflection. That's all. He knows that if you're making $35,000 a year, you can't afford to spend $1,000 on some BS and wait 10 years to get back, what, $5,000?
You got it. If that.
You also made a good point where some people, is there a tomorrow? A lot of people don't see that there is a tomorrow, and that adds to the reckless spending because they say, I mean, I'll never be able to afford a house. I'll never be able to get out of this hole anyway, so I might as well buy some things to enjoy, this little bit of time that I have before things, really go under. And I think that's been a mindset of a lot of people, unfortunately.
Okay, it's a good point. Well, while we're on this point about decisions and choices, Mr. Spivey, you've been around a while. You've seen a lot of things in your time. You know, with your various businesses, we're going to point personal. This next question is a personal question for each co-host. Mr. Spivey, what's one financial mistake that you made and what did it cost you?
You know, back in after I retired from the FBI in 2000, I opened up a car dealership, and I had it for 17 years.
I think I bought 3 cars there.
Yeah, you did. And I remember I was renting from this gentleman who was passed on, but he was one of the nicest Republicans I'd ever met in my life. He was just a very nice guy. I rented from him for the whole time. But I had had the dealership for about 5 years, and he approached me about buying the building. And at the time, he wanted $300,000 for it. And you know, it's hindsight. What do they say? Hindsight is better
2020.
2020. And he said, "Bill, I'll work with you." And I said, "You know, I don't want to go in $300,000 worth of debt because the car business was." I mean, yeah, Gary Johnson was buying 3 big cars and I was selling cars, but the car business was really up and down. So I didn't want to get into $300,000 worth of debt. Make a long story short, I'm there 17 years. The amount of money I was paying for rent, I could have bought the building. and and today, if I owned that same building at $300,000, I could sell it because it's commercial property, and where it is, I could sell it for $2 million. So the lesson learned is, and you probably heard this term before, scared money can't make money.
Yep.
And so that's the lesson learned. And what I would suggest to people that are young in their 40s or whatever, if you get an opportunity, take it. Because, you know, my mother used to say, nothing beats a failure but a try. And if you try and you fail, hey, what have you lost? But if you never try, you never know what could have happened. So that's my big mistake. 300,000, 2 million a day, that would have been a hell of a profit.
Yeah. Okay. Carlos, you know, we call you the finance guy, the analyst, money man. What's one financial mistake you made and what did it cost you?
Woo. Oh my God. Well, I'm gonna take it back to what I was talking about earlier. Sometimes you have that caviar taste and the tuna fish money, like my barber said. And when I was a young man, I think I had just turned 22. And I was starting to, make a little traction on my job. And I didn't want the economy car. I wanted something a little nicer. I wanted something a little nicer. So they didn't just see me coming. They saw me coming when I got off the bus at the car dealership, right? So the precursor to the Nissan Altima was a Nissan Stanza, okay? And I got a black 4-door 1991 Nissan Stanza. Thought it was the mid-level. It wasn't even it didn't even have the sunroof. No, it didn't even have the sunroof. Okay, it was the mid-level, but it was a nice mid-level car, very nice car. And I just had to have something. I wanted something nice. I felt like I wasn't even gonna get a good date if I didn't have a decent car, right? That's back in the days when the brothers had the 300Zs and all that type of stuff. I had to have something decent. So I signed on the dotted line. I told him I was hoping to, back in those days to get the car for like $300 a month. And then it came out at like 420. And I was like, man, 420. This is 1991, right? And I'm 22 years old. And I told the guy I can't pay. He said, "What can you pay?" I said, "I can't pay over 400, man." He got it to 399.98. Okay. They made that work, right? Let me tell you, I just Googled what is the value of $400 in US dollars in 1991? What is that value today? It comes out to be somewhere between $969 and $994. So basically, what I'm telling you is it's like me or a 22-year-old walking into a car dealership right now who has a decent job where they can pay their it's a good job to get you started, right? And to buy a car and pay somewhere between $969 and $994 today in 2026. That makes no sense whatsoever. And like I said, when you do something like that, yes, you leave with a car maybe you want. Okay, obviously I didn't have my credit history couldn't have been more than a couple years old, right? Because I'm only 22, so I had to
Yeah.
pay a higher finance percentage. And then what did that lead to? I mean, shoot, when the car needed, you can have a warranty for the first few years, but car still needs maintenance, right? Oil changes, it needs brakes eventually, things like that. And then because I was cutting that so close, I didn't plan for other things. And I went into a credit card spiral um, back then. And I really just got to the point where I'm completely credit card free as of 2024. Okay. Because guess what? Besides buying a car, life comes along. Believe it or not everybody who gets married stays married to their first person that they ever marry. Congratulations, Mr. Spivey. Congratulations, Mr. Johnson. And, I guess, CJ, you haven't gotten married yet, but a lot of people don't stay married. And that's another major life expense that can break somebody. And so I think when you plan your money, okay, if in order not to make a major mistake, think about it not just how it affects you today. Think about how it's going to affect you a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And most people just don't do that, right? But that's how you go down the rabbit hole, and that's how that 1, 5, or 10 year decision you've made can hurt you for the next 20.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
CJ, one financial mistake you made, and what did it cost you?
I think you have to have finances to make financial mistakes, and I do not have any and have never really had any substantial finances to lose. So I don't really have any big money stuff other than I don't make enough of it, and I never really have made enough of it to invest in anything. Or I just started making money doing music out of necessity because I don't have any other way to make money. So it wasn't like, oh, I want to do music full time. It's like this is the only thing that's paying me right now because I couldn't find a job. So I've done a bunch of terrible jobs for close to minimum wage. I've been a janitor. I've worked at a car auction dealership. I've been a roofer for a day. I've done just about every awful job you can think of to not make enough money. And so, yeah, so don't have any finances to speak of.
Okay. At least not yet. Hopefully, your dad will look out for you. You'll get something, but you'll have something before then. I'm quite confident it's going to break for you. Definitely is going to break. Mr. Spivey, this might be our final question for tonight. In a perfect world, you can snap your fingers and you can get results. Now, at the snap of a finger, you can fix one issue affecting Black men. What are you fixing and how are you going to fix it?
Wow. You talk about a curveball. Oh, shit. One issue affecting Black men. And how would I fix it? I think one of the issues that are affecting a lot of Black men today is, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of pushback from this, but it's respecting yourself. You know, you always, there's an old saying back in my day, doesn't apply now, but first impressions are lasting impressions. And so, when you don't take pride in the way that you look, the way that you dress, and the way that you present yourself in public, it's not that you're trying to impress someone, but you should be trying to impress yourself. And I think a lot of Black men today don't take pride in themselves with their personal hygiene as far as the hair, pants hanging down, I mean, showing your underwear and that type of thing, wearing bonnets in public and coming out with flip-flops or bedroom shoes on. I just think And if I could snap my finger, I would take it back to some type of standard that we used to have back in the day. You know, I heard Carlos talk about the 80s and the 90s. Take it back to that kind of standard. Back in my day, we had afros. I mean, I had one. I remember the day I graduated from the FBI Academy, and you go across the stage, and the director gives you your credentials, and he shakes your hand. He gave me my credentials, shook my hand, and pulled me close to him and said, "Get a haircut." Because I went through Quantico for 16 weeks and did not get a haircut because I was one of three blacks in the class and I wanted to be rebellious. But even so, with the afros, if you look at the people who had the afros, they were very neat. I mean, that was the thing, patting them down constantly, picking them and that type of thing. So if that was one thing I could probably snap my finger, is just say, pull your pants up, you know, and present yourself well.
Okay, you gave me a flashback when I was an agent, and and I went out there in the field office, and the SAC, the special agent in charge, and I had a beard. He said, "Is anything wrong with your razor, son?"
Oh yeah, back in those days, ABC agencies didn't put up with that, and you could
Yeah,
cry if you want to and said discrimination. They would show you the front door and said
yeah,
discriminate outside. Yeah, they
yes,
didn't.
sir. Carlos, you can snap your fingers. What's going on? What you gonna do to fix one issue in the for black men?
Man, employment. Black men need to get employed. Hey, look, whether it's Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, any retail establishment, or it's the NFL, black men simply don't get equal footing when it comes to being hired. And you can look at several different reasons, but whether it's regardless of what level you're on, the black community just needs to have more assistance in making sure black men get a fair shake. And I honestly believe it's because the people who usually own the businesses or are in charge of the businesses usually aren't black men. Okay, if you look at the percentage of African American men who are in CEO positions, management positions, and ownership positions compared to white men in this country, it's very small. And I believe that a lot of times with a lot of companies that they look to hire people in their own image. You can take that however you want to take it, but look at the NFL. What was it, three coaches when they put the Rooney Rule in place in 2003, and in 2023 there was still three black coaches in the league, so it really helped a lot, right? That just goes and shows you. And now what are we up to five now? Maybe we're up to five black coaches in the NFL, maybe out of 32 teams. And that's on the highest level of sports. But that's the same way when you walk into a lot of these, if you walk into any type of you know establishment. I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say there's probably out of 10, if you go to the same business and go to 10 different locations, I'm going to say this possibility you might have one, maybe two black managers, whether they, men, women, what, maybe two, right? And that's crazy because I live in the DMV area, and the population here in the DMV area for black men and blacks in general is higher than most places in the country. So you would think if I can't see it in the area where the black population's at a higher level, you have almost no shot in the Midwest or the Great Northwest or certain areas of this country. So it's going to be hard for the black community to rise and for black men in general to rise if they don't have an equal opportunity to gain employment. So, maybe, just maybe, if somebody's listening, maybe they'll reinstate some of those diversity programs, but that probably won't happen. That's my
Okay,
take.
all right. CJ, young black man, take us home. One thing you can fix affecting black men.
I mean, for any people, I would just say just pay people enough to live. I mean, that applies to black people as much as anyone else in terms of specifically to the black community. I don't really have anything to wag my finger about specifically, but I don't like just from a music perspective and entertainment and some in terms of what a lot of people feel like are role models and things like that. I still feel like there is a lot of people joke like CIA funded psyops of like them pushing the most ignorant artists for black people still, especially in terms of hip hop, you know, gangster rap, NBA Young Boy, Sexy Red. I feel like those artists get overly pushed and overly marketed to our community to the point where, you know, that's what the kids know and that's what they are digesting and things like that. And I feel like it's not an accident to kind of degrade our community to push those entertainment figures, because the people that run those labels are not black. They don't look like us. They don't have the agenda of uplifting the black community. They're there to, you know, make as much money as possible and exploit these artists. So, I mean, that's one thing I would do is overhaul kind of the entertainment aspect of who gets pushed to the top of these algorithms.
Okay. You know what, folks? Tonight's show was short and sweet. We told some truths. Some of those truths may be uncomfortable for you, but if we're serious about growth, we talked about personal growth, financial growth, we talked about the community, then these conversations aren't optional. They're necessary. That's why we call us the Thought Brothers. So until next week, I'm Gary Johnson for the Thought Brothers. We're out of here.
Good night.
Good night, folks.
What you see is what you get, is what you get. I said what you see is what you get, is what you get. I said what you see is what you get now, baby, is what you get. I'm real, it's the real thing. It's the best thing yet, the best thing yet. But baby, I've got good intentions.